Well, you've joined me at the fantastic Carp fisheries, and without doubt it's the warmest day of the year up to press. Match fishing is back up and running, and what a better place, can't think of a better place to come and practice a bit of margin fishing for the spring in the matches that are coming up, especially for the big qualifiers. So what we've got to remember is we're still in the spring, the fish want to be in that shallow water. There's loads of fish today cruising around, but they're very wary because the water clarity is still quite high. So we are catching a lot of fish down the margin. So I thought I'd just quickly run through in this kind of situation what I like to do when I know that that water's clear. I want to give them fish some confidence to moving down the margins. So the mix, what I'm using today is Swim Stim milled expander in the black, and I'm sure that most of you that have seen a lot of the videos that I've done in the past, I'm a big believer in camouflaging my bait, giving the fish that confidence to come in, and black to me is the perfect shade when the algae bloom hasn't arrived in the water, and all the natural organisms that turn the water into, like I say, a greeny algae colour haven't really started working yet. The water temperature is still low for that, and that's where this black really does work. And this is the actual finished product, but what I'll do is I'll show you quickly how easy it is to make, but it's really nice, soft and fluffy. You can imagine the fish aren't aggressively feeding down the margins, so I don't want an overly heavy, dense mix. I want something quite fluffy that's going to really cloud that water up, and that's exactly what you get. There's a few fishery micros in there as well, so it's naturally going to have some food source for them to stay in that area, because there's particles in your kind of like feed zone where you're feeding it. So that's the mix. So let me just quickly show you how I do it. Really nice and simple as well. So it doesn't take a long time. Do it on the bank, or even in, you know, throughout the progression of the match. If you wanted some more ground bait, it's really simple to mix up. So I'm going to mix up half a bag. Now what you've got to remember is, because it's milled expanders, the particles swell up quite a lot, so you end up, I'd say, with double the amount of ground bait as to what you have in a 900 gram bag. So quite simple with margin fishing, and with it being a milled expander ground bait, you can actually add a little bit more water than you need. And what I want to do is I want to create, as I do with a lot of my mixers, I want to create an overwet mix, because it's amazing how much, like I said, ground expanders really do take on that water. So that's you can see it's really claggy. It's just on the verge of actually kind of like sticking together, which is not what you want, but it doesn't matter if it does happen, because you just leave it for longer before you riddle it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chuck that on a riddle, and because it's a milled expander, you know, you can actually end up with quite a lot of bait that'll last you throughout the whole day without actually mixing 2 or 3 bags up. You get away easily with 1 bag a lot of the time. So I'm just going to push that through, add some air to it, get rid of those lumps, push it all through, and because it's over wet, it's going to have that time and that extra moisture to take in and prevent that ground bait in a way from drying out, which is what you don't want. Now look at that, that is absolutely beautiful, and it allows you to form it into balls, little nuggets, if you're feeding it via a kinder pot, or you can just feed it loose, which is what I'm doing at the moment. As I said, I'm just going to add some micro pellets into it dry, and if you look at that now, you've got quite a lot of feed, but you're actually minimising the choice of the fish. They'll come into the cloud, there's particles there, but kind of like using a contrast bait with single and double corn over the top really does complement your hook bait. And it, in theory, what I think is it's going to speed up that process of a fish finding your hook bait if you've got a contrast bait. So I'm using Dynamite XL corn, perfect. So really nice and simple. Got some sweet corn for the hook, ground bait and micros for the feed. So I think it's time I ought to get on the bank and catch a few fish. Right, so I'm at a peg, time to feed some bait. So I've got my ground bait in the bucket down here, sweet corn, And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the peg a little bit of a booster. Now, of course, I'm pleasure fishing, so it is going to be a lot more prolific than what I would be in match conditions. But all this information is quite relative, especially for that killing time in the last 90 minutes of your match. If you are match fishing, when the fish want to move down that margins, this approach is absolutely deadly, and it's just coming to that trigger point in the spring where they react to baits such as the ground bait as opposed to particle baits. So I'm just going to give them a nice big pot, a few grains of corn in the middle. I'm just fishing down the edge. I'll show you my rig in a minute. After I've fed this, just there, plop it in. I want to get my rig straight over the top of it to ensure before a fish moves in. Single grain of corn, like so. I've got a 0.5 rig on, but as I say, when hopefully I land one, I'll show you my rig. So put my bait in there, wait for my rig to straighten up, lower it down. And the most important thing is, once you've got your rig in, keeping everything as stable as possible. You're fishing for the, there we go, and we're in straight away. You're fishing for big fish, so the last thing you want to do is foul hook them. Get everything nice and stable, present your bait perfectly, or as good as you possibly can, and it minimises foul hooking fish. The last thing you want to do is try and foul hook them. Keep everything nice and concentrated, and you'll catch them in the mouth, and you'll also catch those wiser fish that are coming into your peg. And as well, this is the time of the year where they can actually come in quite quickly. It's not a big fish, but it just goes to show, calm down, little sweetheart, just pull that a bit in time as well. Just goes to show how quickly they actually come onto your bait, even when the water's quite clear as it is. You know, we're only in literally the first few days in April. Slipping back, and let's have another go. Now the interesting thing is, a lot of people might be giddy, you know, getting the rig straight back down the edge before feeding. Now you can remember what I spoke to you about, the ground bait's creating that cloud, but as soon as a fish comes in and you hook it, especially when you hook it, you can imagine it's spreading all that bait about, so you've got to group the fish again before actually dropping your rig in, because if you don't do that, there's a very good chance you could foul hook a fish, and that's what I definitely don't want to do. So again, not as much ground bait because I know that they're there and they'll be on it straight away. A few grains of corn, and go through the process again to ensure that I'm doing and disciplining my presentation, and that's really important for big fish down the margins. So again, and make sure when you do it, you feed it in exactly the same spot where you've plummeted up. Your presentation's right, your hook bait's sitting in the right depth. So when a fish does come in and suck your bait, it registers on your float straight away. So pick a marker and be accurate, and pick a marker on your pole section where you'll be holding it to ensure you're in that critical position all the time. You can see I've just waited for that rig to settle and then lowered it down, bang on top of where that ground bait's gone. And all I'm waiting for is that positive bite of a carp sucking it in the mouth. The big bubbles come up there right next to my float. Now this is the time of the year as well where there's not too many fish coming into the peg. they might be coming in ones and twos. They won't be coming in numbers like what they will do in the summertime when the water's warmer. So it actually allows you to read your bites properly, and they feed more confidently when there's not too many there. That's what it's all about. Look at that beauty. Fantastic. Let's slip him back. So I hope those hints and tips have helped you. Hopefully in the spring when you get out on the bank, lovely day like today, catching some big fish down the edge using a really simple but effective approach. So until next time, tight lines.